Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Partner Awesome Podcast. My name is Jason Asher, along with Ryan Albretsen. Today's pod is going to be the first of a multi-part series, hi Ryan, that's going to talk about the deployment form. And when I was in NetSuite, we scaled that program to around $30 million a year in influenced license revenue and tens of millions for implementation partners and third-party technology companies.
I remember that, Jason. I was on the other end of that.
Yes, you were. You were, yeah. You had to fill those bad boys out. Yeah.
Filled out.
There you go. That was a typical, hi, your monthly meeting is happening. Can you fill this out now?
Yeah. Yep.
Now, or I might kick you out. Now.
Good times there.
Yeah, good times. Good times had by all.
Yeah.
You know, and so speaking of good times, I'm using a new recipe now for the pickled jalapenos.
Oh, really? What's that?
Well, it's basically bought these amazing these nice sized jalapenos in Trader Joe's here in Boca,
yeah, right.
And cut them up into thin slices, not too thin. You don't want to be too thin. And I put them into this big pot, right? Mm-hmm. And then I put 3 mason jars of water, half a bottle of apple cider vinegar, and about a few pinches of salt, some sea salt, 3 cloves of garlic, and I mean momish cloves of garlic.
Right.
And then I sprinkled in some spices, and I had it come to a boil. Let it sit for about 8 minutes, and then I took the soup ladle and scooped it into the jars with the boiled water. And then on the bottom was all the garlic and the seeds that were left over.
Okay.
So I scooped out the bottom, and now I have these 3 jars all ready for the new year with pickled jalapenos.
Amazing. So what do you put pickled jalapenos on?
Great question, Albretsen. Great question.
That's
So let's start with morning foods, if you will.
Okay.
So it goes fantastically well, of course, with omelets.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Good time.
And let's say you have a bagel.
Some spice.
Let's say you go to Bagel Boss and you get this a schmuck the bagel with scallion cream cheese, but it's not hey, let's smear a little bit of cream cheese on your bagel, Ryan. No, this is boom. You got this huge boom, and then you could put the jalapenos on the cream cheese, so you get the creaminess of the cheese. You got a little bit of heat with the scallions, and then boom, you're hit with it. And then if you put some lox on there and some lettuce and tomato, you got a good morning going.
All right, you're kind of
dip that sucker in a bowl of honey. I mean, you are good.
Really. Wow.
Yeah. Bowls of honey are a thing in my house.
Yeah, I think they're a thing for sure.
Okay, so now let's move on. Let's move on to let's say we move on to let's say we have breakfast. So what about brunch foods, right? Because we're not at lunch yet. We're in between breakfast and lunch. So let's say you wake up late and you want to have pizza for breakfast. You could put them on pizza.
Okay.
Let's say you have leftover ziti, macaroni and cheese. Blends in very, very well. Really, really good heat. Let's say it was taco night the night before. You put some sour cream in a leftover taco night, ingredients, and then you put the jalapenos on.
Good. So it's mainly anything that you would put like a salsa or something on. Just a little bit of heat, a little bit of spice there, right?
A little bit of heat, a little bit of spice. Yep.
Yeah.
Let's say you wanted spaghetti, or you wanted just whatever. You want to make noodles and cheese. You just boom, you put it in there with slice ups of tomatoes and onions and garlic, and you got yourself a nice little Italian dish that you see on the videos on YouTube.
Nice.
So now let's talk about dinner, between lunch and dinner. Okay? So sometimes for dinner you might go to traditions and get this geschmack sandwich, just pastrami sandwich.
Right.
And you got some mustard on it, but you're you know what? I want to make this sandwich awesome. New podcast called me Sandwich Awesome. And I'm gonna put these jalapenos between not so much between the mustard and the pastrami. You want to put it in between the pastrami slices, so you get the juices of the jalapeno onto the pastrami.
You're really making me hungry here, Jason. I haven't eaten lunch yet, and this is kind of.
So you know what? We're gonna save dunch, which is between dinner and lunch. Dinner.
Yeah.
Right. and Linner. Now Linner goes from like the top of lunchtime to the bottom of dinner, but then Dunch is like the middle space of lunch and dinner. Linner, Dunch, Linner, Dunch, and that's where some more awesome will happen on the next episode. Okay. So let's talk about the deployment form for a second, Ryan. You know, I know it was a pain in the butt. It was very interesting because all across an organization like NetSuite, I was asked to deploy it in many different areas of NetSuite, and every channel head or anybody that had a channel program, like at the time it was Enright that had ERP. There were some other some other channels. They were like, wow, why don't we implement this across the whole company? Because it's one thing to activate. It's one thing to do deal reg. It's one thing to enable. It's one thing to talk about value creation. All of that is getting the product known, educated, out the door, in the hands of the partner, in the hands of the prospect, contract signed. But then once the contract is signed, you have to do something called what, Ryan? What do you do after the contract? What do you do after the contract is signed?
After the contract is signed, you have to put together a timeline. A plan.
No.
What do we do?
What do you mean, what do we do?
Sorry.
We pickle more jalapenos. What do you mean, what do we do? But Ryan, come on.
We go out and have a good time.
Go out and have a good time. We go to Javier's, $2,500 lunch.
Exactly.
No, but you're right. You put together the contract. You put together the deployment timeline, and then you go live. But what a deployment form does, and what a lot of companies don't realize that have partner programs, is that you see a lot of things going around LinkedIn about preserving value, getting more and you see a lot about educating. You see a lot about the front end. What about the middle and the back end of the partnership? That's where, when you talk about scalability of a program, and you talk about how are we going to take this entity and really get into this, middle space of the deployment, the end of the deployment, and get onto, the management of the account. How would a platform or an AI or the supplier in this case really manage this correctly? So the mistake that we were making back in 2014 is that we were scaling rapidly, had zero, and I mean, and it was really a mistake that I made. This whole thing was born out of a mistake. I had zero recourse during the time of escalation. And I could, we're not going to name names. There were times when I was really caught on my heels having to defend partners to executives and managers and general managers because I don't know. And I was sick and tired. I was sick and tired of saying
visibility of where these projects were.
Right.
So these other people would be asking, okay, Jason, how about XYZ company? How's that project coming along? I got a phone call about that, and the customer might be
right. And I would say to them, well, let me call the partner, and I'll have a meeting with them, and I'll get back to you.
But see, I get it. So if you're meeting with a partner, monthly, and going through that deployment form and saying, this is where we are in the project. We're actually building out the customized shopping cart functionality right now. This is where it's at. So you could actually, at that point, if somebody asks you a question, you can go to your
we could go. I could reference at the time. Reference that deployment form inside the suite. Pull up the record. Here's what they sold. Here's what they customized. Here's what the contract said. Here's where I am managing the relationship. Here's where they are. And then all of a sudden you have this. You have your finger. You have your finger like on the pulse.
Yeah.
Before that, nobody in my position would be able to turn around and say, I know everything. And I think one of the reasons why they say partnerships are very much like a business within a business, this is a perfect example. I mean, this is basically a partner manager behaving as if they're the head of practice of a professional services practice, but a head of a professional services practice for, at the time, like 57 partners globally, which are all facilitating and deploying. You have to have a mechanism in there that's going to be able to reveal what's going on, so that when we would travel globally, we would land in different countries and different territories, we'd be able to turn around and say, okay, we get it, we know what you're going through, we understand. And then I would be able to sit in offices like in London, call the product team in Barcelona, call the product team in Uruguay, call the product team anywhere in America, and we would get on with partners. They would explain their problems. They would get answers in real time, all because of the deployment form. So it's one thing to have a PRM that's going to be like, who registered the deal? What do they want out of the deal? What collateral? Blah, blah, blah. It's another thing to go into a PRM and go, okay, what's the status? What do they sell? What are the escalations? How are the escalations affecting other parts of the business? Because once you settle the chatter of the escalations, that reverberates throughout product, support, account management, channel management, executive branches. It reverberates throughout the whole company. And
everyone's aligned. You're holding everyone accountable.
Yeah,
there's no, something's not going to get lost. Or I don't know where that project is. They've been sitting on that project for 6 months. Nothing's going on. Right.
And then what happens, Ryan? You're going down the right path here. What happens is that I started to aggregate a lot of data of why either there were failures during implementations that got live, or there were customizations that had to be written to go around the potholes in the platform. Yeah. And I vividly remember I was in Barcelona. It was like a 5-day product offsite. We presented last. I never forget this. PS said their numbers. We were like, I think we were like plus 47 in the green at that point in terms of like what we were deploying. And I got up there and I said, look, I'm not I have one slide. You see that first thing up there? If we solve that, it unlocks X amount of tens of millions in revenue. There's 100 people in here. I'm not continuing until I get an answer. And I needed an answer on this for like 4 months. All of a sudden, one person says to the other person, says to the other person. So one person passed the buck to another person, and then finally somebody said, I'll take responsibility for it. Another person said, I'll fix it. Another person said, I'm going to fix it tomorrow. Another person said, I'll have it fixed by the end of the day.
Yeah.
So the other advantage of these deployment forms is that the person who is heading up operations for, it doesn't matter what size of program you have, these forms in many ways are really the how can I say this? It's really like the pistons, if you will, inside the engine. I don't know what the electric battery Rivian fancy schmancy Albretsen reference would be, but I know for my Honda Pilot, it's basically it's the things that keep the engine going. I know we have about a minute and a half left, but in our next episode we're going to go through how to build a deployment form or how to make decisions on what you need in that form. And then over the next few episodes, we're gonna build that form out.
Perfect. No, and I think that if the partner manager is constantly updated on what's going on, they can even recommend technical resources that might help.
Right. No, Ryan, but you said it. They can manage.
Right.
They can manage. A lot of what partner managers do is not manage. A lot of what a partner manager does is he said this, she said that. I'm going to direct traffic of communications, not
fires and things.
Right. Managing leads to scalability. Everything else is just noise. All right, cool. All right, Ryan. I think we did some good today. So on the next episode, we're going to go into how do you choose what to put on the form based upon the vertical that you're in. And until then, my name is Jason Asher on behalf of Ryan Albretsen. This has been the Partner Awesome Podcast. I will see you next week. Shana Tova Umatsuka. Take care, everybody.